In a quiet Danish wetland, archaeologists expected peat, mud, and perhaps traces of ancient animal life. What they found instead were human skulls, pierced, placed, and submerged. These weren't scattered bones dragged by nature or victims of random violence. They had been deliberately arranged beneath the water, and in some cases impaled with wooden stakes. It wasn't a burial, but it was intentional, and no other Mesolithic site in Europe has shown anything like it. The discoveries began surfacing in the early 2000s, most notably at Alken, Enge, a former lakebed in eastern Jutland. There, over 30 skulls were recovered, some pierced with sharpened hazelwood stakes driven through the cranium. Radiocarbon dating placed them around 6000 to 5000 BCE, deep in the Mesolithic period, a time when northern Europe was still forested, wet, and home to small bands of hunter-gatherers. These people lived in close relationship with nature, but apparently, they also had complex and unfamiliar rituals. What stood out was not just the number of skulls, but their context. The remains weren't buried in the ground, but placed in shallow water, surrounded by animal bones and tools. In some cases, jawbones of wild boar, red deer antlers, and fragments of decorated paddles were found nearby, as if part of a larger symbolic act. There were no full skeletons, no grave markers, and no attempt to hide the bodies. Just skulls carefully positioned, sometimes stacked, sometimes upright, and some punctured with rods of wood inserted post-mortem. The stakes, made from flexible hazel branches, weren't used to kill. They appear to have been inserted after death, either through the foramen magnum or directly into the cranial vault, likely to anchor the skulls in place. This wasn't careless disposal, it was deliberate. But deliberate for what? Scholars are left with theories, none of which fit neatly. One possibility is ritual sacrifice, perhaps the offering of enemies or tribe members to a lake spirit or god. But there are no signs of mass conflict and few weapons. Another theory suggests ancestor veneration, where skulls were kept and displayed for spiritual purposes, only later being deposited into the lake. A more chilling idea is that these were trophies, heads taken in intergroup warfare, later displayed or discarded. But again, where is the rest of the evidence? Then there's the idea that this was part of a liminal ritual, where water served as a bridge between the world of the living and the dead. Wetlands, especially in prehistoric Europe, were often places of ritual deposition, but nearly all such examples come from the Neolithic and Iron Age, thousands of years later. The Mesolithic is typically devoid of such ceremonial complexity. That's what makes this site an anomaly. But that's changing. In 2024, a sweeping genetic study published in Nature offered new insights into the people of Mesolithic Denmark. By analyzing over 100 ancient genomes, scientists confirmed that these hunter-gatherers, from cultures like Maglemos, Congomos, and Ertebola, formed a stable, genetically homogeneous population for over 4,000 years. They were not a culture in flux. They were consistent, isolated, and tightly knit, an ideal environment for the development of local, unique spiritual practices. Isotopic evidence added more depth. These people had a marine-heavy diet, relying on fish and shellfish, and showed signs of low mobility. They weren't nomads. They stayed put. And that makes the intentionality behind these skull deposits even more significant. These weren't strangers. These were members of the same tight community, possibly elders, leaders, or spiritual figures, whose remains were given to the lake as part of a deeply rooted, locally understood belief system. Remarkable preservation made this glimpse possible. Denmark's anaerobic peat and mud preserved bone, wood, textiles, and even plant matter. Elsewhere in Europe, similar rituals may have taken place, but left no trace. Still, the facts remain disjointed. No burial mounds, no dwellings nearby, no written clues. Just skulls, water, wood, and a ritual we can't reconstruct. The tomb of the Sunken Skulls, as some now call it, stands alone in the archaeological record. It offers a rare glimpse into the spiritual world of early hunter-gatherers, but only a glimpse. Perhaps the most haunting realization is this: we might be looking at a sacred tradition that survived for generations, but was so local, so specific, that it left no echoes outside this lakebed. A belief system that died in silence,